Yeah, I think, okay, fine, I'll do chapter 1, no problem. We light, I'll just arrange the light. It'll just take a few minutes. But I'll anyway start. मेरी आवाज clear है?
हाँ बिल्कुल.
ओम अज्ञानातिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे प्रभुपाद की. So हम लोग, oh yeah, I think I have to speak in English, sorry. So we are studying chapter 1, Bhagavad Gita. Now, well, chapter 1 is the least read chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I think so. Because, yeah, it's chapter, because people think other chapters are important. Definitely other chapters are important, but chapter 1 is also equally important in the sense that chapter 1 gives a foundation of Bhagavad Gita. That's very important to understand. So Bhagavad Gita, it is, to say, how does chapter 1 keeps a foundation? If we don't understand chapter 1, then we don't understand the problem, and then we don't understand entire Gita, which is the answer to that problem. So chapter 1 also sets the problem, because actually Srila Prabhupada writes the name of the chapter, Setting the Scene. So setting the scene in one sense, it is like what is happening on Battle of Kurukshetra, Pandavas and Kauravas and blah, 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 whatever. But it also means setting the problem so that when we understand the problem, then we can understand the answer. If we don't understand the problem, then we'll not be able to understand the answer. Just don't do it. So the point is, you see, the point is, if you don't understand the context, how will you understand the answer? That it happens like that. So chapter 1 tells you the real problem. Now, what's the problem? That is chapter 1 all about. And if we understand chapter 1, then we can come to some conclusion. In fact, the final verse we read, Sar Dharman Paritajya Mam Ekam Shunnam Vija. This is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. But the point is, how do we know that this is the essence? There are so many verses which can be the essence. According to Kriya Yoga people, there's a particular sect, Kriya Yoga. You go to Rishikesh, you'll find these people. So according to them, they also read Gita, but according to them, the central verse of Bhagavad Gita is not Sardharman Paritajya. It is in 6th chapter. Pranapan Samayukta, that verse. And if you see, many other commentators have commented on Bhagavad Gita, and they have said, okay, the essence of Bhagavad Gita is Karmanne Vadika Rastima Phaleshu Padachan, like this. So how do we know that Sardharan Paritajya is a essence, the crux of Bhagavad Gita? Why? How did we come to this conclusion? By studying chapter 1. If we don't understand chapter 1 properly, then we will never come to this conclusion that this verse is a central verse of Bhagavad Gita. So what is chapter 1? So what is the problem there Arjuna is facing? Now Arjuna, externally it seems Arjuna is facing a dilemma that whether should I fight or not fight. This is a dilemma externally. But the point is, this is external problem. But this is not the main problem. Why? Question is, why Arjuna is in dilemma whether to fight or not. That's another question. And if we try to answer this, then the whole problem boils down to another problem, a deeper problem that Arjuna, in his mind, he is thinking that dharma, religious principles, are higher than bhakti. That's a deeper problem, and that is why he's confused whether I should fight or not fight. And all the reasons in first chapter which Arjuna gives, Krishna, I don't want to fight because I live on Shankara and because my gurus, I have to kill my guru and nobody has killed my guru, any guru in the history. It's sinful. So a woman will be polluted, etc., whatever reasons. All these reasons you will see carefully. These reasons are religious reasons. And Arjuna is saying whether I should fight or not. Like I'll be involved in sins and all these things and destroying religious principles. This is not good. But Arjuna forgot that who is ordering him to fight? Krishna. And I think Krishna knows much better what are religious principles than Arjuna. But Arjuna is confused, and if Krishna is saying don't fight, then the response should be okay. Krishna is saying fight, then the response should be I'll fight. That is called bhakti. Bhakti, where service to Krishna. Apparently, religious principles are destroyed when you are serving Krishna, but Arjuna is more attached to dharma, and that is why he's giving all these arguments. He's saying, I don't want to fight. And Krishna in entire Bhagavad Gita, what he's trying to do? He's trying to raise Arjuna from the platform of dharma to the platform of bhakti. That's what Krishna is trying to do. He is saying, Arjuna, your reasons are valid from religious perspective, but your reasons are not at all valid from the perspective of bhakti or devotion. It's not at all actually correct. Because bhakti means service, and service means you obey Krishna, and then you want to not fight in spite of my order that you should fight. So Krishna wanted to impress him this fact that above dharma is bhakti. But Arjuna is denying to fight because he's thinking dharma is above bhakti. He's confused. And that is why the last verse, the crux verse is Sar dharman paritajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Abandon all religious principles, just surrender to me. And Arjuna, if you do this, then your all arguments are out of the window and you should be ready to fight because I am safe. So, entire Bhagavad Gita is a response to that first chapter's problem, that bhakti is a higher dharma than ordinary religious principles. That is why Bhagavatam says, Savaya pumsam paro dharma yato bhakti rathokshaje. Savaya pumsam paro dharma. Bhakti is supreme religious principle. That's what Bhagavatam says, Savaya pumsam paro dharma. So this is very important here to understand, because if we don't understand this, then it's a problem. And so you see how Saradharan Paritajya verse is connected to the first chapter. So this is one reason why we have to understand first chapter, to understand the problem. And the problem is Arjuna in his mind is thinking dharma is higher than bhakti, and Krishna has to reverse this fact, and that's why he speaks in time. Now that's the first point of first chapter. Second point in first chapter, very important, is Arjuna has become morose. And he said, I don't want to fight. And he becomes morose and he left his Gandhi and he becomes completely frustrated. And then Krishna starts speaking Bhagavad Gita. The idea is until unless a living entity don't actually karma chaiva karmevi, that until unless a living entity don't realize that I have no solution from my problem, he will not surrender to Krishna. Even surrender to Krishna will not be fruitful. So Arjuna sat on his chariot and he left his Gandhi. That means he was completely confused. So second point is, confusion is the beginning of spiritual life and surrender. So when we are confusion in what sense? This confusion that can I help myself to get out of problems or not? Once you're convinced that I cannot help myself to get out of the problem, it is Krishna who can only help us. And then if that kind of sentiment is not there in the heart, then our spiritual life cannot begin. Until unless we have trust on ourselves, spiritual life doesn't begin. That's the whole point. So that's the second point in first chapter. The third point, very important point in first chapter, is that this you see, if you read Bhagavad Gita carefully, the purpose, Prabhupada is raising another point. Arjuna is denying to fight, of course, because he's more attached to religious principles. But Prabhupada is also saying Arjuna is denying to fight because he's a pure devotee, because he has compassion in his heart. And that's why Prabhupada says, that is why, because he has compassion in his heart, he wants to forgive his enemies. So that is why he's appropriate candidate for learning Bhagavad Gita. So this is the third point. Until unless our heart is not full of good qualities and goodness, we are not qualified to hear Bhagavad Gita. We can hear Bhagavad Gita, but we will not understand it. It will not go into our heart. So that's the third point. The third point is, to attain God, we need good qualities, or technically it is called as Shat Sampatti. To attain Krishna, we need Divya Gun in our life, divine qualities. Divine qualities are must to attain the divinity. How do you connect with divinity? So that's the base. That's the base there. So this point is so important that when Madhvacharya mentions that to attain liberation, you need Brahmanatva. To attain moksha, you need to first become Brahmana. Brahmana, in a very general sense, the meaning of Brahmana is you need to attain divine qualities. That's right. So that's the third point in first chapter. These are very crucial and important points of the first chapter. And another point, the fourth point of first chapter is, you can see that a pure devotee like Arjuna, he can also go into illusion and he can deny God. That's a tremendous fall down. Although this was pastime of Krishna himself put Arjuna into Maya. But nevertheless, he went into Maya and he fell down to such an extent that he even denied the orders of Krishna. In a sense, I mean, he didn't deny flatly, but he said, well, I'm confused whether to fight or not. Krishna is very clear you should fight, but he's saying I'm confused. So the idea is that when a living entity falls down, or living entity might be at any level of devotion, but it can fall down and it can commit severe offenses against Krishna. Arjuna is doing a severe offense by denying Krishna's orders. In fact, Madhvacharya says that the greatest offense is to deny the orders of Krishna. One of the greatest offenses is to deny the orders of Krishna, and he did it. He's doing it. And that's what illusion does. Krishna has purposefully put Arjuna in illusion, but the idea is illusion works like this. The person goes into illusion, he actually denies Krishna, and he goes even further down. And that is why when Arjuna denies, I should whether I'll not fight Arjuna, Krishna, I'm confused, I'll not fight. He just almost broke down. His Gandiva slipped, his heart started trembling. A fighter like Arjuna, he's trembling out of fear. It doesn't actually behoove Arjuna, and it proves that Arjuna was in a very severe mental depression. So, denying God leads to such situation, breakdown, and frustration. So this is what is first chapter all about. If we really think about it, these are some important points in first chapter. They can be other points, but anyway, yeah. So I remember another point. Another point of first chapter is that first chapter is trying to bring renunciation. That's the purpose of first chapter. Trying to bring renunciation by actually trying to bring renunciation by putting Arjuna into some severe problems. So when a living entity undergoes problems, only then he develops renunciation from this material world, because then he understands this material world is completely useless. So problems, another teaching of our first chapter is problems are our guest. Don't try to turn them away or solve them. Invite them as a guest. And when they will go away by themselves, invite them, tolerate them, and when they will go away by themselves, they will leave the room cleaner than before. That is said by one of the Prabhu. It will help us to advance. So this is it. This is what is first chapter all about. If there's any question, you can ask me. I'll just end up here. I don't want to extend because there are questions, and that is a good idea. Let us take some questions there. I've given you so many deep points. You probably have to sit and think, because we can elaborate on them. But you have to think what's happening in this first chapter. Okay. Any questions? Anything? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, beautiful explanation about chapter 1. There are actually two questions I have. The first question is, when you are saying there are qualities that needs to be attained until we attain the qualities, we are clearly not qualified to receive Bhagavad Gita message. There is a confusion, Prabhuji. Qualities are attained, but then I remember in the last discussion for Bhagavad Gita, where you were present in one of the groups, you said to practice the quality, the situation has to be there. So when a situation is there, seems like there is a confusion that we are practicing the quality, the situation is there, we are trying to find a solution to the problem. So there doesn't seem to be a balance between solution of the problem and how to not revert against the plan that Krishna has. How do we maintain the balance? Like by finding a solution, sometimes I'm scared. Am I reverting against the plan?
No. Plan, I mean, how do you know that? Okay, fine. If you think problems, Krishna sent these problems to help me develop these qualities. So if you think like that, then automatically you think, okay, it's plan of Krishna, so I should not revert and I should not try to solve. So I should try to change myself. That's the point. But on the other hand, we have to also get some solutions to problems, practical solutions. Otherwise, it's a mess. So, intelligent devotee, what he does, intelligent devotee uses those problems to develop good qualities, first of all, and then find a solution such that those good qualities are not destroyed. In sync of those good qualities. That's how a devotee practices. Because you can find a solution which can be completely weird and which can, I mean to say, solution which can solve the problem, but it develops negative qualities in your heart. So a wise person uses the problems to develop good qualities and uses the solution to develop good qualities. We use both.
It's hard to find such a solution.
It's hard to find. Yeah, you're right. It's hard to find. If you can't find a solution which nourishes your good qualities, then you should not solve that problem.
Yes.
That's the wisdom. Because if you try to solve with some other solution, then you develop bad qualities, and then that solution, externally you solve the problem, but internally you increase the problem. So in that case, we don't solve the problem.
Then let it go.
Leave it like that.
And surrender. And then one other question, Prabhuji. We are saying that it is clearly an offense when we don't listen to Krishna's order, which Arjun at somehow moment is doing that. But we don't follow Krishna's order anyways. Krishna says Satat Yuktanam, and we forget about Satat Yuktanam. We can't even follow anything properly.
Denying an order and trying to follow but not able to follow, those are two different things. Arjuna denied that I'll not fight, and he just sat on the chariot. I'm confused, I'll not fight, I'm sitting. But later in second chapter, then Krishna scolded him. But you're important. Then Arjuna said, oh, actually, I want to become your disciple and tell me what to do. But at a particular moment, he just denied and he just sat and gave his all logics for denying. It was a willful, thoughtful denial. He came up with good logics. I mean to say, with valid logics. But we are not denying. We are trying to follow, but we are not able to follow.
So would this be called an excuse then?
What?
Would this be called an excuse then, that we are trying to follow but we can't follow? Would this be an excuse?
Well, in a literal sense, yeah, it's an excuse. We don't want to, so giving excuse. But that's in a very literal sense. But many times the heart is weak. So conviction is strong, but the heart is weak. So we want to do, but genuinely we cannot do. And then if we are giving an excuse, then we'll not feel the guilt. But if we are feeling the guilt, then that means we are not giving excuse. We are in real sense not trying, but we are weak-hearted. We are not able to do. So by guilt, you can understand that whether you are cheating yourself or you are really trying to do, but not able to.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so there are.
Sorry, Prabhuji, one more question. When we say when Arjuna is put into this situation, he's actually developing renunciation. Which sometimes I feel that when we are, of course, the situation we are put in is because of our karma, nothing else. But instead of us developing renunciation, we develop a bitter taste. And then how do we overcome that bitter taste?
I can't understand your question.
So we said that Arjuna was put into a serious problem in order to develop renunciation, right? That this place is miserable, not worth living. When we are put into the situation, we are clearly put because of our karma. But then we are clearly putting this because of our karma. We are saying this is the way to develop renunciation. Sometimes instead of developing renunciation, we actually end up developing a bitter taste instead.
Yeah, I mean,
and some of the qualities. And then because of this frustration, some of the qualities that we are trying to somehow inculcate, all that practice goes into vain. We are back to square one.
That is why we need good association. That's the role of association, because we become frustrated, but when we go to a devotee, and then devotee again makes us remember, don't get frustrated, have courage, and these problems are sent by Krishna, try to develop good qualities. That is why only books cannot lead us back to God. It's insufficient. We also, with books, we need people who are following those books, that is devotees. So that is why there's sadhu, guru, and shastra. So the sadhus are required. See, we can get all philosophical understanding by books. I mean to say we are really intelligent enough, but we'll not be able to follow them without association. We'll become weak in front of the force of Maya. So that is why, along with Shastra, Sadhu plays a very important role to give us courage, to help us clear our confusions when there are critical times, like that.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Hari Bol. Oh, really? Lecture was clear enough.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Well,
I have a small doubt.
Yeah.
So, Prabhuji, you said the last point that we should invite problems as guests and tolerate them. So, this is similar to like Kunti Maharani praying for problems. But, Prabhuji, are we at that level that we can handle this?
Well, problems will come, but either we can struggle with them or invite them. But they will come. So we have a choice. If we try to struggle with problems, then problem increases and we waste energy.
I didn't get you, Prabhuji. What is the meaning of struggle with them and invite them?
Well, invite them means just stay with them. Don't try to solve all the problems. It's a bad decision to solve all the problems in life. Just let them come.
How do we decide which ones we can solve and which ones we cannot?
Well, if you can tolerate, don't solve. That's all. If you can tolerate it, don't solve. If you can't tolerate, then do some solution. But the best situation is to tolerate, because just as happiness comes and then goes, similarly problem comes and it goes by itself. We just have to have patience and sit. And I mean to say that's very difficult, because when we are in problems, we try to do something. So it's, I mean to say, so it's a reflex.
Yes. In fact, our whole life we are doing that only. We are trying to solve problems.
That's why scripture is saying, why do you want to waste your life solving the problems? Only two types of problems you should solve. One is when the problems are intolerable, then you have to ask for a solution. Or another, the problems which actually harm others and not just yourself. That should be solved, because if it harms us, okay, fine, we can tolerate. But if it also harms others along with us, then that has to be solved.
So, otherwise, for example, Prabhuji, if I can ask you one thing, like if we are trying to preach somewhere and people are really getting interested and they want to take up to the philosophy and all, but envious people are causing a lot of opposition. This is a problem. Now, should we try to solve, or should we just feel, okay, let it be, dekha jayega, whatever happens?
Well, I don't, in this kind of situation, I think you can just leave it, because you can't stop envious people talking. It's impossible. And the more you try to stop them, the more they will become blissful, isn't it? And they'll react. Envious people feel bliss when they try when they are being stopped. That's what they want. If you don't stop them, then they become bored, that this person is not responding, leaving. So it's almost just like, just like in hostel, boys used to rag us, so ragging, no? In hostel, they do ragging. So people who rag, if so suppose seniors are ragging junior, and the junior doesn't react. If he doesn't do anything, then the seniors will leave. Oh, he's boring. So they want to rag somebody who actually reacts, and then they will have some fun. So that's problems. If we react, then when more problem comes, then envious people become blissful. Okay, let's coax him further. But if we don't do, then they just leave us, because there's no even solution. We'll end up wasting more energy stopping them rather than preaching.
So then should we stop the preaching because they are causing so much problems?
No, keep on preaching. You keep on preaching and let them speak. Let them keep on speaking and you keep on preaching. That's all. They are doing their job. You do your job. That's all. And then they will stop after some time, and they will see that they are not stopping. Okay. That's how it goes. Why we should stop. But if you want a good solution, a solution which can develop good qualities, you can talk to them. You can try talking that what's the solution. It's a problematic situation. But if they're not ready for talking, then you pray for them. That Krishna, please give them good intelligence so that they preach and they don't hamper in preaching, and so that they also start preaching and they don't be envious. So that we can do. These are good solutions. That's all.
Yes, Prabhuji, I heard that lecture of yours in which you were saying that how we should deal with our enemies by wishing well for them and praying for them.
Yeah.
And how that is the most difficult thing.
Yeah, that's the difficult part. I can understand. It's not easy to do. Most people will not be able to do it, but if we do it, then we become very dear to Krishna.
Even if we do it, we might not be able to mean it. It might not come from the bottom of our heart.
That is another thing. That is, yeah. Then Krishna understands. But at least, I mean to say, at least you are doing something which nobody does.
Yeah, we can make an attempt at least. Yes.
Yeah, you can make an attempt, and if you make an attempt, you will feel a lot of satisfaction in your heart. I mean to say, yeah. If you're doing in proper consciousness, but most people will not be able to do it. That is 100% sure. But at least we know what is right, what is wrong. Even if we are not able to do it.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, in like enemies of our enemy is okay, but if we see somebody is like envious to Krishna, or then how to deal it? Means somewhere it is written, means we should oppose, means if somebody is offending Krishna or the Guru. So, our enemies okay, but if somebody is envious to Krishna, then how to deal?
Well, I mean to say, it depends, no, what kind of enviousness he's carrying. I mean to say, if he's envious due to ignorance, then have compassion. But if he's envious due to knowledge, like Ravan and all those people, then you have to kill them or ask God to kill them. Something you have to do. Scripture says, or just avoid them. That's all. If they're too powerful.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please define the difference between a problem to be solved and which one doesn't have to be. Maybe with an example.
Well, I just told, no? Problems to be solved. I just told the problems which affect others also, that should be solved. And the problems which you can't tolerate and your bhakti is getting spoiled, then you have to solve that. Otherwise, just tolerate it and go along.
Prabhuji, can you please explain what do you mean by affect others?
Well, it affect others means if there's a problem in preaching and even other devotees are getting affected because your preaching is getting spoiled and other devotees are getting bewildered due to some problems, so then you have to solve it. But if there's a problem only to you because of some circumstances, preaching is not affected but you are affected, then just leave it. Or somebody tells you something and so while preaching somebody tells you something and you are hurt and he says some nasty things to you, but that's specific to you, it doesn't affect your preaching, so then you have to just don't solve it. But if somebody speaks something which actually disturbs the entire congregation and the devotion of entire, then you have to solve the problem.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I think we can stop here.
Okay, that's fine enough. It's good.
Actually, there is another question from Anandaram Prabhu. Sincere devotional service makes a devotee recipient of good qualities. How to acquire these?
What's this question? I think I need an explanation for this question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandotnam. So, when we read the scriptures, we find that when we practice devotional service sincerely, so automatically these qualities, the divine qualities, they start manifesting through the devotee. So now, what is it like? We have to really try to acquire these qualities so that we can do bhakti properly, or is it happens side by side? So, because as you said that point, so that point I'm unable to gather. Like it should go after the qualities, or it should go for bhakti.
Well, I mean to say Mahaprabhu says Trinadapi Sunichana. So what's that? That's a quality, humility. And then Mahaprabhu says, if you do this, of tolerance, these are qualities, divine qualities. And then Krishna says, if you do this, Mahaprabhu says, then Sada Kirtana. So we are practicing it. So we have to practice so that we can always chant and do devotion. And then when we will do devotion, then more qualities will manifest. So we have to practice. Yeah.
In the beginning, this instruction of Mahaprabhu is like the epitome of all the good qualities. So most of us, or at least when I must have started, definitely may not have improved that quality. But the different limbs of devotional service were recommended to start. and we started. So it happens simultaneously, or we should we should labor for attaining those qualities?
No, you tell me. Do you practice humility or not?
I try, but when I started at that time, I was not knowing that we have to practice all these things.
Okay, so but now you know and you are practicing. We don't expect that we'll keep on chanting Hare Krishna and automatically humility will manifest. We practice it. Because if we don't practice it, then we'll commit offenses against devotees and the whole devotion gets spoiled. So the idea is we practice, the solution to this is we practice divine qualities, because divine qualities are favorable to devotional service. So practice is done in the spirit of Anukula se Sankalpa. But when we do devotion with these good qualities, then due to devotion, spontaneous, inherent good qualities manifest. So there are actually two kind of divine qualities. One is inherent within us, which manifest, or in other words, by practicing devotional service, we actually realize those qualities in full. But before we realize those qualities in full, we must practice these good qualities along with devotion, because they are anukul, they are favorable for devotional service. So we follow good qualities in the spirit of being favorable. That's all. But when we do devotion nicely, because these qualities help us to do devotion nicely, humility helps us, tolerance helps us. So then, by doing devotion, then those good qualities which we were practicing, our soul imbibes it, it becomes spontaneous, and it becomes 100% to the climax.
Yes, thank you for that, Prabhuji. So we have to do it simultaneously. That is what I am understanding. We should try our best to cultivate those qualities. At the same time, keep our sadhana also strong, and then the soul will get the ability to absorb these qualities.
Yeah. That's true.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So we can understand it that way, that we need to have, first of all, a knowledge of these qualities, and secondly, the desire to acquire them. Then only the soul will be able to, we will be able to practice, and then the soul imbibes them.
Yeah, you can say like this. First, you should know them, then you can desire to practice them, then you practice them, and then by strength of devotion, they become absorbed in your so in your very nature, and they become part of your life.
So, Ji, one more thing I wanted to ask, that are there any particular verses in this chapter 1 which require special attention and special meditation? Like I've seen you sometimes take a lot of verses, like many from chapter 9 and all, where you have analyzed those verses from different points of view, where what the commentary of Srila Prabhupada is slightly different. The commentary of some other Acharya is giving a different point of view. So are there any such verses in this chapter? And if there are, can you help us analyze them?
Yeah, there are. All the verses of first chapter can be understood from 4 or 5 perspectives easily. There are so many levels of understanding of these verses in first chapter.
So if you can give just a general understanding of all the verses and the various perspectives that we can look at it from.
Well, that's a complex question. How should I give you the general perspective? But the idea is, see, Arjuna is getting frustrated, and he's saying, I don't want to fight, and he gets frustrated. So the question is, why he's getting frustrated? One of the perspective, a deeper perspective is, of course, the reasons I told why he's got frustrated, because he keeps dharma over bhakti. But if you go in a deeper sense, he's getting frustrated because he's got separated from Krishna. in his will. His will is now disunited with God. And that is called separation of soul from the divinity, from God. And that frustrates the soul. So this separation is due to disuniting of will. But then there is another separation which you feel when your will is completely united with God. That's the another end of it. Like gopis, they're completely united to God in their will, and that's why they are missing Krishna. So that's also separation. So that separation, the separation which gopis feel, what Arjuna is feeling is a perverted reflection of that separation. So in the frustration of Arjuna, we see his feelings of separation from the feelings of separation of soul from the will of God. But we understand this is but in that we see the real substance. We see the separation of gopis in that, of which this is perverted reflection. So this is one way you can read all the verses of Bhagavad Gita first chapter.
Very nice.
Yeah, like that. And especially, I mean to say, if you want, you have to go in Sanskrit if you really want to read.
That is so difficult.
Yeah, that is a difficult part. So that, you see, if you don't know Sanskrit, one thing is, I mean to say, I don't want to discourage you, but if you don't know Sanskrit, a whole ocean is locked for you. It's locked, completely locked. It doesn't open. But people who know Sanskrit, for them, entire ocean is there in front of them. So of course, I tell few things from different perspectives because I know Sanskrit and I can read them. But then there's so many other things that you can only feel the essence of that knowledge in Sanskrit language. English cannot capture it. It's insufficient. So
maybe Prabhuji, from every chapter if you can pick out some 4 or 5 verses which help us to look at the chapter or look at this in a more deeper sense from a different perspective.
Okay, maybe we can do that. I just gave as example from first chapter one thing, but we can do that. Not a bad deal. That is a good idea. Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Yeah, Archana Mataji. Yeah. Actually, she wants to ask something.
No, Prabhuji, I had raised my hand before only. I forgot to lower it.
Oh, your hand is not lowered. Okay. Okay. That's a problem. Yeah, Pranab Prabhu. So, what should we do? Okay, we can do that. I finished first chapter, and I think devotees who have heard, they should write these points and then revise it, and then we can do the second chapter. Yeah. I mean to say, I can do the first chapter again. There are so many other things. It is endless. First chapter is endless in the sense there's so many points if we go in details. So let's see, we can do something. Or we can do second chapter, third, fourth, and then we can again come back to first chapter. And then we can. So they will have some kind of overview, and then you come to first chapter again, and then again there are so many things like that. Okay, so we're going to end up here. Jai Jai Hare Krishna. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो श्री प्रभुपाद की जय।
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dhanavad Pranam. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Hare
Dhanavad Pranam,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare
Dhanavad
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna,
Pranam.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,
Dandavad
Dandavat Pranam,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dhanavad Pranam ji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.